What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 DFS live stream for this week's St Jude Championship. Going to cover everything you need to know for tomorrow's slate from a weather report. We'll talk through some of the strategy involved here for Saturday's slate and go through all of your live Q&A. So strap in, sit back, whether you've got a drink, you're just chilling here on a Saturday. Either way, hopefully you guys enjoy the live stream or having a solid Saturday night. And this live stream, hopefully going to make it even better for you. So hopefully your lineups are doing better than mine through this point. I definitely had quite too many slapdicks in my lineups here. A lot of the quote unquote studs that we played didn't really play like studs this week. And on the flip side, some of the quote unquote slapdicks that I took absolute just long shot flyer plays on are playing out of their minds. So it's a little bit of the Twilight Zone here. Guys playing over their head. I mean, JJ Spawn in first place, Sepp Straka in second place, just guys that we're not used to seeing at the top of leaderboards, let alone at events of this type of field. So it's a little bit of a backwards type of week. I know a lot of other people out there are probably in a similar type of boat, but that's why we're here for Showdown, right? We're not going to dwell on our past mistakes. We're here to try and take down a contest here on Saturday, right? Try and get some ROI back in our pocket. And based on the first 2 rounds, we have a lot of data in our back pocket and should be able to go out there and have some success. So I can see quite a few of you down there in chat. What's going on? I got Colin, who played Troy Money. So I'm guessing that's Troy Merritt, who was unbelievable today. So hats off to you there, boss. That was a great pick. You did have Scotty in that lineup. That sucks. And see, Robert has a few slapdicks to call out there. That would be List, Kurt, and Scotty. Yeah, I got bit by all 3 of those too. So yeah, they're on my list. I have a quite extensive list of slapdicks for this week, which we're not going to touch on here. Maybe towards the end, we'll look at some of those. But yeah, there's like 10 guys at least that I can think of off the top of my head that just completely fumbled the bag today. But that's how PJ DFS works from time to time. Sack, on the other hand, had somebody clutch up for him. And yeah, I saw your 6 of 6, man. Sack, that's a pretty solid lineup to say the least. And that would be Joaquin Neiman. Yeah, it's about time he comes in clutch, right? Obviously won at the Genesis, but yeah, just a high pedigree player. You'd love to see that. We got Benny Levine down there in chat. He says he has 4 core plays at -1. Yeah, me too, boss. I had a bunch of guys at -1. Let me think. Billy Horschel was in my best lineup of the week. Actually, a lineup in the top 50 of the $5 GPP. And it still isn't in the top 50, but that's not going to last, right? It's a 5 of 6 because of Billy Ho. It's one of those weeks, boss. Like, at least for me, I got absolutely whooped when it came to my lineups. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, right? That's going to happen from time to time. It's actually been a while since I've gone whooped. So, I was kind of deserving it at this point, right? People are used to getting whooped week to week on DFS, and I tend to not have it happen that often. So when it happens, I can't take it too harshly, right? It's going to happen. That's DFS for you. Bad Beat says, yo, Luke, let's crush this field. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to hop into it here in a second. And Robert Babb says, let's grab some whiskey. I have actually some Tito's in here, Tito's and Coke. We're actually on like number 3 at this point. So we're going to have some fun here tonight, guys. Yeah, as soon as Scotty missed the cut, we poured some Tito's into a glass and got drinking because it's that's what I do after I have a bad cut. I play him 50% of my lineups. I had a lot of Scotty Scheffler this week. Let's go ahead and share my screen here. We'll hop into the weather here for tomorrow. We'll talk about some of the stats here from round 1 as well. But from a weather perspective, we're getting a very similar slate to what we saw here on Friday. So Friday, the winds were a little bit higher. On Saturday, they will be a little bit lower, but we're not going to have a massive wave differential, right? In terms of the scoring averages between the waves, today, there was hardly a difference. I mean, in the afternoon, it was like a 0.4 shot difference. That's what you're going to see in pretty much every PGA Tour round. That's just due to the receptiveness of the greens. Also, the fact that they get more scuff marks, the greens, the actual grass on the greens grows throughout the day, so it's not going to be nearly as consistent. That's your usual split, right around a 0.3 to 0.4 shot difference. And for tomorrow, it's probably going to be in that similar type of range, right? The wind gusts never really spike. You can see there's 1 hour where they go up to 14 miles an hour. So, the guys that are teeing off after 9 a.m. might have an advantage. Yeah, just kidding, right? Obviously, that's probably just a little bit of variance right there. But you're looking at a relatively flat slate. So whether somebody is in the lead or somebody is starting at -2, I don't think they're going to have advantageous conditions. I mean, maybe except for the guys in the early morning that are on those receptive greens. But I don't think it's enough to play like one wave over the other, right? Whereas on some slates, we'll have low winds in the morning, like this 5 to 6 mile an hour that we see there. Whereas in the afternoon, sometimes it'll be 15 to 20 mile an hour winds. That is not going to be the case here. So if you're looking to target one wave or the other, I don't think that's the way to target this. But you are going to want to target guys in the morning. And we'll talk about this on the strategy side, just because they're starting from the back of the pack, right? They're going to be lower owned because they just hardly made the cut. In a lot of cases, they're pretty much the same play as the guys up top, particularly from the ball striking perspective, but just need the volatile categories like around the green and putting to start going their way to get to those ceiling performances. And frankly, if they made the cut, they're at the very least playing serviceable golf, right? They're not going to be playing like absolute dog shit through the first 2 rounds and make the cut, even in a relatively condensed field. So that's the take on the weather. It's pretty much no take at all. So I know it's the cop-out answer, but there's no real wave advantage to be played there. And in terms of a strategy perspective, I'm going to be all about bounce backs. And it's not going to be all about bounce backs up top. We'll talk about Cam Smith here in a second, who I'm going to have an outrageous amount of for tomorrow. But especially when we start to get to this mid-tier, the lower tier picks that we talk about, you can see plenty of guys at -2 that will be featured here in the video a little bit later on. Guys at -4. -4 is pretty much like the cap I'm taking on a player. I'm looking for guys that are going to be low owned and have the upside to go out there and shoot something like 4 to 5 under par, because with lower wins, you're going to see pretty solid scoring. I mean, today the scoring average was right around a half a stroke under par, but with the wins about half as low as what we saw today, I mean, you're going to see at least a slight uptick in terms of scoring, but that might be slightly mitigated by the firmer and faster greens. And that is something I probably should have mentioned during the weather section. It is going to be sunny tomorrow. There's not expected to be any precipitation overnight. So as a result, they are going to get slightly firmer and faster. And I would say that they're going to get firmer and faster a little bit quicker than most golf courses, because like I mentioned during the course breakdown, over the last 2 months in Memphis, they've been in a quote unquote drought. Now, for the last week, they've gone absolutely drenched. That's why it played so firm, I should say, so receptive there on Thursday. But that effect is most likely going to dry up a little bit quicker because of how dry the area was, right? It was pretty much asking for any moisture at all. It was just willing to soak it up at all costs. But now that, the rain has stopped, I expect that to dissipate rather quickly. So, sorry, I didn't mean to, hopefully I didn't unplug my mic there. Let me go ahead and check that. No, it looks like we're all good. Sorry about that, guys. Let me go ahead and center that again. But essentially, I think it'll be slightly firmer and faster, right? That's the end all be all with that. But with the lower winds, I think that'll make up for it. So scoring conditions going to be at least as easy as what we saw here for Friday, if not slightly easier. But up top, the guy that I'm playing in almost every single lineup here is going to be Cam Smith at $9,800. He's -8. And to this point of the golf tournament, he's gained less than half a stroke with his putter. Now, with the announcers, you probably would have thought he was gaining 4 or 5 strokes, because every time he lined up a putt, they were like, oh, is Cam Smith going to make this putt? And I mean, outside of that eagle putt that he made on 16, he really didn't make anything of length. So I don't know what the announcers were really up in cahoots about his putting during this event, because it's been pretty dog shit compared to his baseline, where he's getting 1.4 shots gained per round on Bermuda grass. And to this point has gained over 4 strokes on approach, is gaining significantly off the tee around the green like you'd expect. That's why he's at -8, is in contention at this point. Imagine if he putts, like even just to his baseline, let alone if he starts to get some regression going and goes out there and has a spike performance to make up for his middling performances the first 2 days. That is well within his range of outcomes. I mean, Cameron Smith, I don't want to give you the exact percentage. I will give that down to the Discord people. I'm going to tell you guys as soon as the stream's over here, but it's an outrageous amount of Cam Smith tomorrow, like an unreasonable amount of Cam Smith in my lineups. It's probably giving it away a little bit too much. He's going to be 29% owned. You can see nearly 30%. Tony Finau is going to be the only other player I expect to probably be higher owned than a Cam Smith. But in either circumstance, I absolutely love the play, because to this point, he's like playing to his median, right? He's not gaining strokes with the putter. He's going out there, ball striking the crap out of it, like he's done for pretty much the entire season. Off the tee, it's not like he's gaining well over his baseline. He's pretty much right around a neutral. He just has all this room for improvement. And really, if he just regresses back to his mean, you're looking at him shooting something like 6 under par. I mean, that's why I'm so bullish on Cam Smith. I don't think I've been this bullish about a showdown play for quite some time, to be quite honest with you. at least. I mean, I don't think I've played as much of Cam Smith as I'm going to play of somebody in a round 3 showdown, maybe ever. And again, I'm not going to give you the exact percentage, but that if that tells you exactly how much I like Cam Smith here. Outside of that, Tony Finau is going to be a little bit chalky. I expect Patrick Cantlay to also get a little bit of attention. If you're looking for a little bit of a pivot play, I do think that Xander and John Rahm are likely to be the lowest owned of anybody above 9K. Now, from Justin Thomas down to Willie Z here, you're pretty much looking at flat ownership, right around like 22, 21% on guys like a JT, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Willie Z. So really the only pivots above 9K are going to be somebody like John Rahm and Xander Schauffele. And then at 9K exactly, Cameron Young, right? You're going to see maybe like 10 to 14% on all three of those players. Whereas outside of that, 20% plus on all three of these guys, like JT, Fitzpatrick, and Zalatoris. You're looking at, again, nearly 30% on a Cameron Smith, probably 25% on somebody like a Patrick Cantlay, and 30% plus on somebody like a Tony Finau. So if you're looking for pivots up top, you're not really going to get a true pivot. But there are a few guys that are going a little bit under the radar compared to their peers. In terms of guys that I like, I'm really looking for bounce back performances. So you can probably guess what I'm doing with Tony Finau. In terms of Patrick Cantlay, same story. You can probably guess what I'm doing there. And even the guys here at -6, I'm a little bit more willing to play them because of the fact that they're only 9K. They're not in that 10K range. But especially the guys up top, right? Like a Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, I'm going to think twice about playing them, especially when I like Cam Smith as much as I do there. In terms of the guys in the 9K range, one I want to highlight, or I guess it's in the high 8K range at this point, is going to be Ji-Young Kim at $8,800. Now at -4, I don't expect him to be all that chalky, so 18.7% is rather low for a showdown slate, right? In terms of equivalent there with a 4-round sample size, we only have 69 players that made the cut here as opposed to 120. He'd be something closer to like 25, 26% owned, right, in a 4-round contest. So, sorry, the other way around on that, right? He'd be closer to like 12% owned for a 4-round contest. But now that the player pool has been condensed, right, he's only 18% owned. So really, it looks a little bit worse than it is in reality. And I think people are getting bored of Ji-Young Kim, right? He had the solid first round. He was relatively chalky for Showdown today, ended up shooting, I believe, even par. He's more than capable of having that ceiling performance. Look at round 3 last week, where he ended up shooting, I believe, 1 over par, and then on Sunday fired a 61, literally on the same day. So it wasn't like it was, he went to bed, woke up, was able to reset, that sort of thing. He literally went home, took a shower, is what he told the reporter, then went out there and shot a 61. The kid has no conscience. He's more than capable of turning it around in a hurry. And if we're going to get him even relatively low owned, those are going to be the type of plays that I'm trying to get to in bunches. So at -4, he'll be going off at least in the first half of the day. Now he's not, at -2, going to be teeing off super early like somebody like a Cam Young, but he's still going to be getting at least a little bit of an advantage there. And I like the fact that he's being a little bit overlooked. Another guy I want to go ahead and feature here is going to be Sahith Theegala at $8,100. He's -7, so a little bit further up the leaderboard, but he started the day at -7, right? So, in terms of his DFS performance from a showdown perspective, was not going to get there from an optimal play perspective. A lot of people would probably classify it as a little bit disappointing, but those are the type of guys, especially when they're a little bit lower owned than they should be, that I'm trying to pounce on. Because look at it, I have him at 16.2%, which is almost 10% lower than where he came in on DFS contest today. And he's arguably the same play. He showed us that he's more than capable of getting to a ceiling performance at this golf course. And he's $8,100. I think that's more than fair at that price tag. And he's coming in at more than fair enough ownership. Again, 16.2%. You have to remember, this is in Showdown, right? It's not 16.2% in 4-round contests, right? It's a little bit closer to like 10%, that type of thing. In terms of relative ownership, I'm more than willing to get over the field on that, right? Playing 25%, 30% of Sahith Theegala here for the 3rd round is more than doable for me, and something that I'm definitely getting to. We'll go ahead and catch up on chat now, see if there's any questions about the guys up top, see what's going on. We're going to go ahead and go up to the top here. We've got a big text down there in chat. He says, let's get it. What's going on? Jack Fisher says, Scheffler is turning into John Rahm, who's Mr. Angry. Yeah, he showed a little bit of emotion there in round 1, which was a little bit uncharacteristic. In round 2, I didn't see nearly as much. I mean, even when he was coming down the stretch, missed a few birdie putts there in the last 3 holes to make it there. He wasn't that mad, but yeah, in round one, especially through the first 4 or 5 holes, it got really ugly. And after he showed that emotion, he ended up double bogeying the next hole. So it clearly affected him. It's the reason why he missed the cut. If I were him or I were his mental coach, even his caddy, Ted Scott, there, I'd probably sit him down and give him that tough love. Tell him, the reason why you missed the cut this week is you pouted like a little child on your first 4 holes, right? Sometimes that's what you have to hear. It's one of these world-class players. So I agree with you, Jack. You don't want to make that a habit. It can happen from time to time. Even the best players like a Tiger Woods have had moments that they're not proud of on the golf course. It's how you react from that. It's how you learn from that and move on forward. Robert Babb says, let's get after it. Sack says, hey, Luke, you got a fresh haircut, man. I actually didn't. It's just pulled back a little bit. I shaved the sideburns off, that sort of thing. But I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a little bit of a different look. More of the bullet look there. Mark Bornman says, please give us your best lineup for DraftKings Round 3 Showdown. I cannot do that, Mark. If I do that, I'll get banned from DraftKings. So I can't do that, Mark. I'm sorry about that. I can give you my top 4 plays, though. So when we go to the end of the video, we start to make a few lineups together, talk through the thought process. I can give you my top 4 plays, Mark, but I can't give you the top 6. That is against the terms of service. He also says that some big names are gone. I agree, right, Rory? You have Scotty Scheffler, who missed the cut. Outside of that, not a ton of guys up top, but yeah, that's for sure. Mike is good. That's good to know. Benny says, what do you think the 6 of 6 percentage was in GPPs? The last time I checked, it was right around 8.5%. Now, that was a half an hour before the slate ended. So I imagine there was a little bit of movement there over the last 20 minutes or so that may have changed it, but right around the 8.5%. Give or take maybe a percent in either direction. Big Tex says, they said he matched his performance at the Open in the first 9. No idea who you're talking about there, honestly. To be honest. So I don't know who you're referring to, Big Tex, or else I'd be able to get back to you about who that is. Robert says 6 of 6 was right around 8 to 10%, depending on the contest. Yeah, that's what I saw last. Jack says, the one note of caution against Cam Smith is that he has avoided the H2O so far, but maybe that's a good thing, right? He's ball striking it well. So there's 2 sides to that. The one side is he's probably not going to avoid it all week, and I'd agree with that. But in a showdown sample size, I mean, one bad hole, one double bogey, one bogey, whatever it may be, is not the end of the world. It's all about that birdie production. So that's one thing I'll say is I'm going after aggressive players here for round 3 showdown, which we'll talk about, particularly with some of the value picks, because it doesn't matter if they hit maybe 1, 2 water balls. They can get away with that, right? Because if they're making 7 or 8 birdies, that's a lot more important when it comes to your fantasy point production than your actual final score, right? Like you could shoot 2 under par, like some of the optimal plays did today, but make 8 birdies and still get into the optimal lineup, particularly when you're Sam Ryder, who we talked up here yesterday, right? Who scored 50 fantasy points, who only shot, I believe, 4 under par. He made a ton of birdies today, right? And that's how you can get to the optimal lineup. So I agree with you, Jack, to some extent, but I actually would argue that's a good thing, right? He's ball striking the crap out of it. That's why he hasn't hit it in the water. So hopefully that continues. Nick says, I need a bounce back performance. Nick, by the way, and I just want to mention this, he's a little bit down right now, but he was in contention to win the GPP today. Still ended up winning some money. So Nick, pick yourself up there a little bit. You still had a good performance today. But unfortunately there at the end, you had Cam Smith, who absolutely went off, who took the trophy away from Nick. But you were close there. Obviously, when you're in the lead through the first 5-6 hours of the event, you're doing something right there. So like I said, don't keep your head down there too much, Nick. You definitely had a pretty solid performance. Deep Purple says, what kind of question is that? I have no idea what the question is, to be honest with you, that you're referring to. Nick Marr says, thoughts on Sugar Shane? You're talking about Shane Lowry. Okay. Let's look at his shots gained metrics. I'm going to bring it up here on my phone. So the thing is with Shane Lowry, I only want to target him when his ball striking is on point. Like the approach play is a consistent gainer over the last few rounds. That's the main indicator I'm looking for. The putter can be a little bit volatile, so I'm okay with playing Shane Lowry when he's losing with the flat stick, but he certainly has to be gaining with the ball striking. So let me go ahead and check on that. I know he had a decent round today. He shot -2 in round 1, too. So I'd imagine he's playing half decent golf, but let's go ahead and confirm. He has, to this point, gained 2.4 strokes on approach, You like to see that. That's pretty damn solid. He's gaining around the green, gaining with the putter, but has lost 3 strokes off the tee. Now, if I take a look at it, it looks like it has been the byproduct of a few water balls. So, like I just mentioned, I'm okay with that type of shot profile, right? When he's in the fairway, he's taken advantage of it this week, right? He's gained 2.4 strokes on approach. The putter has been there. He's a positive over the first 2 rounds, which you like to see. You don't have to see with a Shane Lowry, but you like to see it. And off the tee, he's had a few blunders. He's had a few blow up holes. I'm okay with that in Showdown, right? In 4-round contest, there's a reason why I faded him, right? He's not really in the best of form this week. I wasn't really bought in on that perspective. But from a single round sample size, yeah, you could definitely see it there. 84. Well, it's $8,200 on this slate, actually. So even better price there. What else do we got? We have a big text who says Cam Smith. So Cam Smith, you were saying he matched his performance at the Open in the first 9. I don't know what you're saying in terms of like what he matched with his performance. Was it his score, his shots gained putting? Still a little bit vague there, boss. Martin says pin locations out, some easy ones, but some also tucked near water should be fun. Yeah, smells like volatility to me. Smells like some water shots. It usually, when it's near the water, I don't want to say it's like an easy pin, but if you hit the green and you put it in position, typically there's not a lot of break to it. They give you a little bit of a break from that perspective. You're going to see a lot of birdies for the guys that are dialed in, and you're probably going to see quite a few 4 or 5 over rounds. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Mightiest says no more ball in hand. Can't wait for the real golf to start tomorrow. Yeah, that's for sure. Ball in hand can definitely be a little bit weird. Big Tech says they made it sound like Cam Smith was putting like he was in the Open. To this point, he's gained 0.4 shots putting. I mean, I'll double check this for you. I'll give you the exact numbers per round. They're full of it. Like, he's not putting well. To this point, Cam Smith is like an above average putter for this field, which is like why I was laughing at them on the stream, because I was watching this throughout the day. Like, his putting stats weren't that good. Just to give you the final count on it, to this point, he's gained 0.282, not like 5.282, zero. Just to make this clear, 0.282 strokes putting. Today, he gained 1 stroke to the field putting. On day 1, he lost 0.7 strokes putting. They just don't know what they're talking about from time to time, right? If they looked at the shots gained metrics, they'd probably know better, right? So, I mean, last week, Ju Young Kim absolutely went off, right? He was going off with the putter. I didn't really hear him talk about that. Martin Gutierrez says, also, this rough reminds me of US Open type stuff. Yeah, it's not the length, it's the type of grass. So it's Bermuda grass. It can be 2.5 inches. It can be 4.5 inches. It is going to suck. And it's because it's such a wide blade grass that it'll hold up balls from time to time. You'll get like it almost teed up where it'll be a flyer. It'll get an extra like 15 to 20 yards, or it'll sit down. And when it's below that wide bladed grass, it's hard to even access the golf ball. So, you get lucky from time to time, or you get absolutely shafted. That's why this rough is amazing. I say it's amazing as a spectator. It sucks as a player, but it certainly adds a little bit of entertainment. Deep Purple says Callum Turan with +7 strokes lost putting. That was devastating. Yeah, he missed the cut, but if he made the cut there, dude, he would have been like the ultimate showdown play, because that's not going to last. Hopefully he makes it into the top 70. I don't know his positioning. He's probably not going to make it in there, but if he did, I'd like him for next week. Big Tech says, I didn't say the announcer said it. He matched his number of putts. Yeah, so I'm guessing it's because he had a lot of missed greens, was hitting it up there in the tap-in range. Yeah, number of putts made can definitely be a little bit misleading. The shots gained putting numbers are a little bit more telling there. Let's go ahead and continue with the player poll, though. So we talked about the 8K range. I guess in general, just to give you a holistic perspective here, I think it's relatively flat in terms of ownership. So, pivots, like maybe a Sun JM. I'd expect somebody, let's see, like a Corey Connors to maybe be a little bit lower owned. Cameron Young, for example, they're still going to be over 10% owned. Like, you're not going to get a single digit owned guy here above $8,000, just because there's not a ton of options to deal with. In the pricing in general is so soft here for the next round that I don't think you're going to have trouble, right, fitting in these guys up top. Like, you're going to be able to take 2, 3, maybe even 4 guys above $8,000 on your lineup, and you're going to feel pretty comfortable about these guys in the 6K range. Because just to give you an idea, right, David Lipsky, $6,700. You can feel pretty damn good about that. We're going to talk about Ricky Fowler at $6,400. Hayden Buckley at $6,300, right? Like, yesterday it was Peter Malnati at $6,300, who wasn't coming in with the best form. Hayden Buckley has been pretty damn good over the last 2 weeks. And even last week, he was in contention and then had to withdraw due to an injury. Like he's playing solid golf. So like there's guys here in the 6K range that you're not going to have trouble getting to. And if how soft the pricing is up top, it's pretty much just take whoever the hell you want to. So the ownership kind of reflects that. People are going to be at least relatively flat across the board. But like I said, I'm taking Cam Smith up top. I'll just say I'm locking him tomorrow. Okay, he's going to be in every single lineup that I'm playing. Okay, I'll give that away because there's no other way to get it past it in terms of my strategy. Right, I'm playing him in every lineup, and then I'm mixing in the guys I like the most here, the 9K range. That's what I'm doing here for tomorrow. I haven't locked a player in Showdown for quite some time. That's kind of why I was avoiding using that word, but it's the truth. I'm playing him in 100% of lineups. It's when you have a guy that's hitting it as good as Cam Smith is, and then the putting is just what's holding him back. And it's not like it's dog shit putting, right? He's like just hardly above average right now. That's a breakout candidate waiting to happen. So I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. Go ahead and see if there's any other questions. There are. We have, let's see what we've got. Deep Purple says, I'm pretty sure he's toast. Yeah, that's with Callum Trent. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he missed the cut. Kitayama was so close. Yeah, Jaeger pulled it out. Yeah, I saw that with Jaeger. With Kitayama, he had 4 water balls today. I mean, on his first, I believe, 6 holes, he had 3 straight from holes 4 to 6. It was beyond ugly. I completely wrote him off. He was +3 at that point. But yeah, man, he fought back. He got there to -1. So at the very least, he showed us that he has that mental strength, that grit to go out there and actually try even when he's behind the 8 ball. So even more, higher stock going into 2022 next year. Yeah, he's a high upside player. I really liked him this week too, that's for sure. And Deep Purple says, I feel like Buckley went home early last week. Yeah, maybe he did, right? And he can't afford the jet back like a Shane Lowry. He can't be like, okay, NetJets, come pick me up here for 25 grand and bring me back to the golf course. That could have been it for sure. That's definitely a possibility. Alrighty, let's continue with the player pool though. So we talked through the 8K range. Let's talk through the 7K now. So Sahith Theegala, we talked about there. He's in the 8K range. Max Homa at $7,700. He's first off 6.5% owned, so I don't expect that many people to get to him. He's at -5, so he's in that mid tier. He's not going up super early. So all the slapdicks that are just like, oh, I'll play all the guys at -2 only, right? Aren't going to be getting to him in bunches. The guys that are slapdicks that play all the guys at -10, right? Like JJ Spawn or Sepp Straka, right? They're going to be like 10% owned tomorrow because there's people that are just absolute peons out there. They're not going to be getting to Max Homa. He's in that perfect range right in between the two, where the only people that are playing Max Homa are probably the ones that like him on Twitter. Like the people like, oh, Max Homa, I like that guy. I'm going to play him in my lineups, right? So I'm at 6.5% ownership right now. And I know the course history isn't ideal, so he's certainly a little bit of a volatile play. But when he's hitting fairways, he's got the perfect skill set to go low, right? Elite level approach play. We know that with Max Homa. That's going to be a constant from him. In a spike putter. He can go round around a game, 3 to 4 strokes with the putter. So tomorrow, right, we just need him to hit fairways. That's the one thing that he needs to do. And then he's going to have every opportunity in the world to have success. And the one thing that Max Homa has done this year that's really elevated his game to the next level, why he had success at the Wells Fargo Championship, which was, another short golf course positional just like this week with, it wasn't Bermuda grass rough, but it was that long bluegrass rough, which is also pretty damn gnarly, kind of comparable to what we're getting this week, is he hit fairways, right? That's not really always his MO. He doesn't always hit a bunch of fairways, but when he does, he can show that upside. So I like him at $7,700. He was low owned going into the week. I expect him to be low owned once again. In terms of the modeling, it likes him across the board too. So really nothing to like, nothing to hate about it. I shouldn't say nothing to like. There's a lot of things to like about Max Homa tomorrow, but it should be a solid play. So I'm taking him probably 20% of my lineups, maybe even a little bit more. Another guy going off early. So he truly is going off towards 7:30, 8 a.m. is going to be Mito Pereira at -2. He started off well through his first 18 holes, was really looking like a solid play. Today completely gave it away. And in fact, at one point was even par, had completely given away all the cushion that he had. fought back towards the end to scratch his way through the cut. And a lot of times, that's what a player needs, right? They got to get scared a little bit. They got to be put on the ropes, see what they're made of down the stretch. And we know at the PGA Championship, right, he crumbled under that pressure. But this time, he made the birdie on 18. He had to birdie 18 to make the cut. He hit an absolute piss missile down the fairway and then hit an iron shot to 3 feet. That's what I like to see. I like to see that mental fortitude because first off, it shows you that he wants it. He's engaged in this golf tournament. A lot of people would have crumbled under that. He's also a solid iron player, kind of similar to a Max Homa. When he's hitting fairways, he's got the putting and he's got that spike putter you're looking for to get to something like a 6 to 7 under par. So I like the fact that he's going off early. That is actually a slight advantage over somebody like a Max Homa. But you can see I have him higher owned. I have him at 11.6%. A lot of that is because he's going off early. Like people are getting better at PGA DFS. I'm starting to have to account for the guys there at -2 to actually be a little bit higher owned because you see that effect on every single slate. And I think to some point, I mean, at least in my process, that wasn't something that I considered, right? Because that's something that me and you do when we make lineups. Like we try to get the guys that are going off super early, right? Whereas, the average consumer, at least up until recently, I didn't expect to do that. But now you're starting to see that, right? People, they get wise over the years, right? They start to learn a little bit, with seeing guys like you and me beat them week to week there in Showdown, and they start to get a little bit better at it. So that's why the ownership numbers look a little bit different, but I like both plays nonetheless. Scroll up here. All right. Another guy who fits that same type of build is going to be Cam Davis. Honestly, everything that I just said for Mito Pereira, I could copy and paste and just say here for Cam Davis. High upside player. When he hits fairways, he has all the ability to go out there and take it low. Kind of similar to Keith Mitchell today. I know we talked about him on yesterday's live stream. Didn't have the worst round today. Didn't have the best round either. Was pretty average across the board. Probably didn't help you. Didn't hurt you if you played him in your lineups. Reason why we played him is he has the upside, right? When he hits fairways, he's more than capable of shooting a low score. In fact, probably guess that I'm playing Keith Mitchell for tomorrow is too, with that same type of mindset. But he's got that spike putter. You saw it on bent grass over the last few weeks. Now, to this point, or on round one, I shouldn't say, round one, he made a bunch of putts. You're likely to see that. That's why he started off so well today. Cannot buy a putt for his life. So needs to bounce back in that category. But now that we're in the 7K range, you're not going to get a perfect player, right? And me, more than pretty much anyone else out there, I'm willing to dive in the trash. I'm willing to take plays that look like complete trash on paper, just if they have that upside, right? Any semblance of hope in their skill set, I'm willing to take them in bunches. So I will be playing Cam Davis. He's an absolute madman. He's more than capable of shooting +7 tomorrow, but he's also more than capable of shooting something like 5 to 6 under par, which is what I'm looking for from the guys here in the 7K range. Next up, we've got Adam Hadwin, and he's starting to get into the 6K here. You can see there's a bunch of guys in the 6K range that we'll talk up, but Adam Hadwin specifically is first off the best player in this range, just from a pedigree perspective. But on top of that, at the Valspar Championship, which is my #1 comp course this week, he's won the event. He's had a ton of success around Copperhead. He's -4, so kind of in the middle of the pack. So I have him relatively low owned, just 6.6%. He loves himself Bermuda grass. And one thing that he does particularly well, so maybe a little bit more reliably than somebody like a Homa, Pereira, or Cam Davis, is Adam Hadwin hits fairways. Right? He's accurate off the tee. You'll like to see that. So he has that at least working for him. The thing that Adam Hadwin has to piece together is the approach play. He's not always the most consistent, but one thing that we've seen over his last 50 measured rounds, and oh boy, this is going to be fun to try and find this here. Where's Adam Hadwin priced? You don't even have to guess. That's what Control F is for. There we go. Adam Hadwin, right over his last 50 measured rounds, is gaining to the field with his approach play. So that's the one thing I'll say about him is that historically, right, not the most consistent in that category. Always going to be relatively accurate off the tee, going to be a pretty solid putter. That's what we're used to seeing for Adam Hadwin. He's become a lot better approach player. So I think that's why you've seen the uptick in performance, why he's been a little bit more consistent over the last 3 to 4 months, and why I like him here in the Showdown slate. He's a lot more likely to get to that ceiling performance, at least based on what we've seen over that time period. So I like him there at $6,800. Down there at 64, I'm playing Ricky Fowler. And for him, it's a similar argument. He's been hitting fairways. On round one, he hit 13 of 14 fairways. And when I was told this at first, I didn't buy it. I thought the person was completely capping, just making things up out of their ass. And when I checked it, I be damned. Ricky Fowler hit 13 of 14 fairways. And to this point, he is top 10 in the field in shots gained off the tee. If I told you that before the week, you'd probably tell me that I'm crazy taking wacko pills, whatever the case may be, because Ricky Fowler is usually not that guy. So one side here, that's one aside, I should say, is that it is possible that he reverts back to his baseline. But when you're in the 6K range here, we're trying to latch on to anything we possibly can that'll indicate to us that somebody's going to have a successful performance. And to this point, Ricky Fowler is striping it off the tee. The issues for him have been on approach. He hasn't been the most accurate, but kind of like an Adam Hadman. I guess I'll go ahead and show you guys to this here too. Ricky Fowler's been pretty damn good with his ball striking. Like, unequivocally, he's been pretty decent, right around a neutral in both categories around the green. He's been gaining, but categories, I should say, the one category aside from around the green he's been the best at is the approach play, right? He's hit a decent amount of greens. And to this point this week, it hasn't been all that great, but it's definitely more than capable. Well, at least I think he's more than capable of going out there if he hits these fairways of hitting, 16, 17 greens. And with his putting ability, I mean, he could generate 7 or 8 birdies real quickly. So Ricky Fowler, he's definitely a risky play, that's for sure, because if he ends up reverting back to his baseline with the off the tee accuracy, has a 4 or 5 over par round in him. But if he continues to stripe it off the tee there, I really like how he's setting up for tomorrow. So I like him there at $6,400. Hayden Buckley at $6,300. I think he's being a little bit overlooked, maybe because of the withdrawal last week. People were definitely a little bit timid to get to him in 4-round stuff. I know I surely was. I wasn't sure if he was even going to tee it up this week. 6,300. He's an elite level ball striker, has shown an ability to make putts on Bermuda, most notably last week before he withdrew. And he's super cheap. So I like him there at -4. And Michael Thompson, the last pick I'll give you here for free, is going to be $6,200. He's -5. So in the middle of the pack, probably not going to be super highly owned. But at the 3M Open, an event that he's won before, which I use as a comp for this venue, I like getting to him because he's shown an ability to hit fairways and lean into his skill set, which is approach play and his putting. And on Bermuda grass greens, he gains significantly, especially compared to his baseline. Like on every other surface, he's a loser and loses in bunches. On Bermuda, finds an ability to go out there and gain strokes and is accurate off the tee, a pretty solid approach player, just a good course fit. So I like the fact that he's relatively low owned, 1.3%. You can see 1.7% on Hayden Buckley, 1.1% on Ricky Fowler. Now, there are going to be pieces of chalk that'll be Sepp Straka, JJ Spawn. I have no interest, 0%. I'm not even thinking twice about playing those two guys. They're going to be 10, 12% owned, especially in some of these single entries or 2 to 3 max type of events. Whereas you have guys that are 10, 15%, sorry, not 15%, 10, 15 times less owned, right? I'm going to make that pivot every single time. They're not 15 times more likely to outperform them in a type of sample size where placement points don't matter, right? In a single round sample size, there's no shot that they're 15 times more likely to have that success. So that's the thought process down here. Troy Merritt's going to be a little bit popular. I'm not playing him. Not going to be playing Troy Mullinax either. Same thing with Ryan Palmer, Wyndham Clark. All of these guys that are towards the top of the leaderboard are just going to be immediate fades, particularly down there in the 6K range. What we'll do now is we'll catch up on questions and then talk about some of the strategy for tomorrow. Let's go ahead and see what we've got going down there. We have Colin that says Rombo time. Okay. So you like some Rombo for tomorrow. I'm not against it. He's kind of been really bad on the greens. He was talking about how he's not used to these type of greens. He was practicing on greens that were a little bit slower over there in Scottsdale. Now they're really fast, really pure around this venue. So if you think he can kind of make that adjustment, go out there, start to drain some putts, I think he has the ability to get there, Colin, but I'm actually a little bit more timid about it. Colin says Kevin Kisner I'm assuming you meant to have Can there. Can Kevin Kisner keep up the solid work? I think he's all right. I don't know if I'm counting on it. I'm not going to be playing him for tomorrow. It's possible. He likes a positional golf course, but the last 2 events he missed the cut and they were at golf courses that made sense for Kevin Kisner. So I tend to worry about that a little bit, but anything's possible. That's for sure. Muddy says at Big Tex, Spieth had a few drinks on the course today. Yeah, it looked like that. Nick says Grayson Sigg by himself at 7:15 a.m. I know you're a sucker for that, Nick. I'm not personally a big sucker for it. I know it can go one way or the other really quickly. But he's got a high upside spot. If he gets in a groove, he's playing some quick golf, might be able to post a pretty solid score, 4 or 5 under par. I'm probably not going to be there though. It's not something that I typically do very well with, to be honest with you. Typically last time I did it was Lucas Glover. He shot like 6 over par. Maybe it's just that's holding me back. But hey, all the power to you. Monday says Rom had a baby late Wednesday night, very tired, could see it all day, nonstop complained on the greens. I saw that too. And after the round, he in the interview didn't even look like he wanted to be there. He was kind of ignoring Mark Carnevale. And then after he got him to answer questions, he was just complaining about the greens. He was like, oh, they're too fast. They're not used to what I'm seeing out there in Scottsdale, where he was complaining about the greens in Scottsdale being, punched? Like they had all the punch marks on it. Like you can't be mad when you're playing on greens that had punch marks on them, John. Like why were you practicing on a golf course with punch marks? Like I'm sure you could have had access to a million different golf courses in Scottsdale that don't have punched greens at this point of the year. Like, look, what are you complaining about? Yeah, dude, I'm over John Rahm. I'm sure it was his home course. He wants to be near the baby. Didn't want to drive 20, 30 minutes to another golf course. But the guy's got to get better with his excuses. That's for sure. Deep Purple says, I think Rahm is not putting on Bermuda. That could definitely be part of it. That's for sure. Nick says, you aren't diving in. No trash with that shirt on. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Anthony Sparza says, yo, what's up, Luke? Who's winning this event? Hey, you got the important questions there, Antonio. That's for sure. I think it's going to be Cam Smith. He's 3 shots off the lead. He's in prime position. And I'm playing 100% tomorrow for a reason, right? I think he's going to go out there and start to putt. Like we're used to seeing Cam Smith putt. And if he continues to strike it like he is, like watch out. He's going to take this place nuclear low. So he's definitely my pick. Beat says Ricky Fowler with open eyes. Yeah, I definitely like Ricky Fowler. Hey, man, look at his round 1 stats. He shot 5 under par. He hit a bunch of greens and fairways. Hey, he's showing the ability to do it. Why not again? And you said you love Hayden Buckley. I absolutely love him too. Let's go ahead and talk through some of the strategy here now. So I'll go ahead, stop sharing my screen, bring it over to the DraftKings side. And what we're going to do here is make 2 lineups together just to give you an idea of my thought process. I know a lot of you out there are doing optimizers. Maybe some of you are building by hand, and this would be even more useful to those of you that are building by hand. But even if you're on an optimizer, I would recommend you guys stick around because I kind of talk through maybe some of the rules that you guys can set just from the game theory perspective. So let's start with a cash lineup. So we're going to do this backwards this time. Start with the more chalky build, which for round 3 Showdown, I mean, this is especially the case for round 4 Showdown. You got to look at the top of the board. And for me, I'm not playing these studs. I mean, I just call them the studs, right? I mean, this week they're studs, right? All the 6K guys are at the top of the leaderboard. So maybe I should be calling them the studs. All these duds that are at the top of the leaderboard, I'm not going to play them tomorrow, right? The guys that I'm more interested in playing are guys like a Denny McCarthy, guys like a Tony Finau and Cam Smith. I'm willing to take all 3 of these guys in a cash lineup because, I put Brian Harmon in there. What am I doing? Let's get Cam Smith in there because it leaves you with $7,400 remaining, right? I mean, you can add Brian Harmon. You could go with your favorite out of the bunch. I mean, for me, it'd probably be Sahith Theegala just because I'm so high on him for tomorrow's round. You start with a core like this, somebody in the 8K, 7K, 10, and 9K range. You can build a balanced cash lineup there. Now, if you want to take one of these guys up top, I mean, all the power to you, but I don't think you have to, right? I know a lot of people will try and just ride with the chalk train. So if you're trying to ride with what's going to be duplicated in probably, 20, 30% of lineups when it comes to cash, it's going to be taking these 4 players, one of these 2 value picks up top, and then filling it in with whatever you have in terms of salary. That's going to be an extremely popular build for cash tomorrow. The one I slightly prefer is to just take 2 value guys that you like, right? So take the 4 guys in the middle tier and higher tier ranges that are chalky, that you think are going to play well, and then take 2 value guys that maybe aren't so chalky that you just project well, right? So in terms of projected points, right, let's see, in the lower 7K range, Brian Harmon, right, would probably be a popular pick. That's probably the choice of a lot of trains here. But if you're trying to get a little bit different, right, Adam Svensson, probably single round sample size, projects great. Emiliano Grillo, they're at -7, right? He's probably going to be a little bit lower owned than somebody like a Brian Harmon. I mean, even going up here to Cage Lee at $7,300, I think you might be able to get to him and get a little bit of leverage. So these type of guys make a lot of sense as that 5th man in. Obviously, towards the bottom of the 7K range is where you're going to have to go to get your last man in. But there's plenty of guys like, Aaron Rai sticks out there, right? Aaron Rai at $6,800 is like the cash game lock because of his ball striking floor. So not to give you an entire lineup, but you could probably figure it out from the advice that I just gave you. That's what I'd be looking at from a cash perspective. Just take the guys at the top of the leaderboard that that are relatively expensive that you like, and then fill it in with a few value picks that have high floors. In terms of a GPP perspective, we're going to do this one of two ways. So there's going to be two lineups that we build here. We're going to do one for a large field GPP first. So like, for example, is this the large field GPP? It is not the large field GPP. So not a 200 entry contest, more like the 20,000 entry contest, right? Where it's $50,000 to first place. And then afterwards, we're going to do a single entry GPP where maybe it is, right, just a 200 entry contest. And you're maybe not as worried about duplicating yourself with other entries. So we're going to do that one second, right? The first one we're going to do here is going to be for the large field GPP. And here we got to worry about ownership. And if I'm going to play every lineup with Cam Smith, let's go ahead and just put him in there right now, right? It's going to make a lot of sense to start there. In terms of a second man in, this is where I try to get to this 8K range, right? So Ji-Young Kim's going to be a popular pick for me. I could see myself getting to early man off somebody like a Cam Young. In terms of an 8K option, we talked about Sahith Theegala, who I like a whole lot. That leaves you at $7,100, which might seem like you're getting a little bit towards the bottom of the barrel, except when you consider, right, there's a lot of guys down low I like. So it's not just Hayden Buckley. It's not just Ricky Fowler that I like. Heck, it's not even just guys towards, Adam Hadwin or the top of the 7K range that I like. There's plenty of guys at $6,100 that I'm playing. Like, and what is there? Like 4 guys there. I'm playing 2 of the guys there at $6,100. I'd be willing to play Adam Shank at $6,000, for example. You can really play whoever the hell you want, right? Just take one guy down low. So just to give you an idea here, right? If you take these 3 up top, and then let's say real cheap guy is going to be Robert Streb, for example. We have $8,100 remaining. We can pretty much play whoever we want. Like, we could take a Sam Burns if we wanted to, go down here in the 7K range, finish it off with somebody towards the bottom of the 7K, and make a lineup that you feel really comfortable with, at least in 5 spots. I mean, let alone the 6th spot where, Robert Streb made the cut here. He's a good Bermuda grass putter. You're probably going to feel pretty decent about that spot too. So in large field GPPs, it's not really a hard build. The only thing I'm really focusing on is just not taking all the chop, right? Like, if I'm going to take a Cam Smith, who's probably going to get some ownership, I'm not going to take all the guys that are going to be super highly owned for tomorrow, right? So like, for example, here in the 7K range, I'm not going to load up on guys like Brian Harmon here in my GPP lineups, right? I'm not going to load up on guys like a Denny McCarthy in all of my GPP lineups. Let's see a few other examples. I'm not going to load up on a Kevin Kisner, for example, in a lot of these GPP lineups. I'm going to start to make some of the pivots and try and get to the, some of the value picks down here that are a little bit overlooked, like a Cam Davis that we talked about, like a Mito Pereira that we talked about. They are perfect examples of those 4th and 5th man in they can go to in that type of format. What we'll do now that we did the large field GPP, is talk about the smaller field stuff, right? Like a single entry, a 2 to 3 max type of thing. As again, we're going to start with Cam Smith because I'm playing him in every lineup that I'm playing tomorrow. We don't have to worry about ownership nearly as much, right? So if we want to be a little bit more chalky about it, let's say take a Justin Thomas because he's super cheap, probably going to be a little bit higher owned. Ji-Young Kim, it's not like he's going to be relatively low owned. He's not going to be chalk, but he's not going to be a pivot play. And just because, and I don't like Brian Harmon, just to make this clear here, okay? But just to give you an idea of how you could build in a single entry or 2 to 3 max, I'd be willing to take a Brian Harmon here, right? Because even if you're taking 4 guys that I think are going to be all 15% plus owned, I think you can get away with it. Right? You're only playing against 200 other entries if you're playing in this type of contest. A lot of single entries are just 200 to 500 entries, particularly when it's for a showdown format. There's not a lot of super big single entries, except for the $5 single entry. That's a relatively big contest they do on DraftKings, but outside of that, not really a ton of ones that are over 500 entries. I'm not so worried about it, right? Just take the guys that you like the most. And for me, that's not Brian Harmon, right? But just giving you a little bit of an idea there of how chalky you can be. That's all I've got here for the live stream, though. So if you do have any questions, throw them down in chat. I will get to any I see here over the next minute or so before we end this up. But that is all I've got there. So before you hop on out of here, make sure you go ahead and smash that like button. Also, make sure you go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. We'll be doing a round 4 live stream tomorrow night, I'd imagine, right around like 8:30, 9 p.m. Eastern time like today, and going to have a prize picks video out tonight. So look forward to that. But here with some of the questions before we hop on out, we have Jack, who says, who of the lesser likes at the top of the leaderboard Do you expect to be there come the back nine Sunday? So the guys that are like a little bit scrubs, we don't expect to be up there. Who do I think could hold their spot? I think Denny McCarthy, I mean, he's not really a scrub, so I don't know what you would classify as one of those lower tier players, but I think Denny McCarthy, based on his course fit, in terms of his recent form metrics, is definitely a candidate to hold that spot. Let's see who else. Brian Harmon, I think, is a good candidate for that. He likes a short positional course. He's been around for quite some time. Maybe it's a better idea to tell you the guys that I don't think are going to hold position. JJ Spawn, I think that's the cop-on answer, but I don't think he's going to be your leader or in the lead come Sunday. Troy Merritt's probably going to fall off. Same thing with Sepp Straka. For Spawn and Straka, it's all about the recent form. They've been like dog shit outside of this golf tournament. And then with Troy Merritt, he's just not a high upside player. So while maybe Merritt hangs in there, ends up finishing in like 5th place, 6th place come the end of the weekend, I don't know if he's going to make enough of a charge over the next event round or two to actually win the event, get there to like 20 under par that might be needed to win this thing. So that would be my take on those guys up top. What else do we got? We have Antonio. He says, will Willie Z be chalk for you, or can you eat that chalk? So he's going to be like 20% owned. So just to give you an idea, I won't give you an exact percentage. He'll be right around 20%. It's not chalk, but it's getting close to it, right? In terms of the guys around him, Matt Fitzpatrick's going to be right around that. Justin Thomas might be a little bit higher owned than Willie Z, but you're talking like 22, 23% on somebody like him. So he's not chalk for the range. Maybe for the slate, he'd be chalk, but everybody there from, let's say, like $8,800 up to right around $9,300 there with Justin Thomas is going to be relatively high owned tomorrow. So I don't think you have to avoid it. Like, he's not going to be 10, 15% higher owned than the rest of the slate. It's going to be relatively flat there. So yeah, I don't think he's quote unquote chalk. And Antonio says, what do we do with Siwoo? So Siwoo had a horrible round today. He started off -8. I tend to think that he has a bounce back in him. He's a volatile player. He showed us on round 1 that he's more than capable of getting to that ceiling performance, kind of similar to why I'm playing Sahith Theegala, right? He shot -7 in round 1, ended up shooting even par today. So maybe that makes people a little bit hesitant to get there, as it might do with somebody like a Siwoo Kim, but they have the ability to get there, right? They showed it to us, and they're volatile players to begin with. I tend to like those type of guys. So I like Sahith. I like Siwoo as well. Definitely guys I could see myself playing for Saturday. But that's all I've got for the live stream. Like I said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I appreciate everybody for stopping by as per usual. Best of luck with all of your Saturday lineups, all of your prize picks cards if you're going in that direction. Have a fun Saturday too. More importantly, right? Just enjoy your weekend, right? It's the weekend. Let's have some fun with family, whether it's with friends, all that sort of fun stuff. And if we end up winning some cash on the side, all the merrier. Like I mentioned, there will be another live stream too. So that'll be tomorrow night. I'm going to just make the tentative timer now, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So expect to see that. I'm going to get you prepared for everything Sunday related at the St. Jude. Thank you guys for stopping by again. And I'll